Ever find yourself, just going along with something, a trend, maybe an opinion, and part of you wonders, wait, is this really me? Or
Hmm.
maybe you've seen how certain groups or ideas just seem to gain this momentum, almost like a life of their own, pulling people in.
That's a really good way to put it. It definitely touches on how this kind of collective energy works, sometimes unseen.
Well, that's exactly what we're getting into today on the deep dive. Vadim Zealand's Reality Transurfing, specifically Chapter 2.
Ah, Zealand.
Yeah, and he talks about this concept he calls pendulums.
Right. And we talked about his alternatives model before. So this look at pendulums. It
Mm.
really dives into those forces he says can, well, subtly influence our energy, our reality even.
Exactly. So our mission today is to really, you know, dissect this pendulum idea, figure out how these things might be working in your life, the listener's life, maybe without you realizing it, to give you a fresh perspective, maybe?
A new lens on things.
Yeah. Okay, so let's unpack it. What exactly is a pendulum in Zealand's terms?
Okay, so Zealand defines it as an independent energy information structure. Basically, it kicks off when a group of people start thinking and acting in the same way.
So, like, their thoughts align.
Exactly. And when that happens, their individual thought energy sort of pools together, it merges and creates this unified current.
Ah, okay. Like when a meme takes off or everyone suddenly starts talking about the same TV show, more and more people join in.
That's a great modern example, yeah. It's that kind of chain reaction. As more people tune into that shared frequency, that way of thinking or acting, the structure itself gets stronger.
And then it starts setting its own rules.
Pretty much. It develops its own, often unspoken rules and ways of doing things. And the followers, they just start abiding by them, often unconsciously. Think about company culture, maybe?
Oh, yeah. Good one. New people come in and just sort of absorb how things are done.
Exactly. Nobody hands them a manual for everything. They just pick it up. That's the pendulum at work, developing its own norms.
And that's the pendulum metaphor, right?
Right.
The more people feeding it energy, the harder it swings.
That's it. Each one has its own characteristic frequency, its own beat. Like pushing a swing, you got to time it right. The more adherence, the more energy, the more powerful the swing at that specific rhythm.
And if people leave,
The swing gets weaker, lose enough adherence, and it just stops. The pendulum effectively disappears.
okay, tracking. Now, some of the examples Zealand gives are, well, they seem a bit out there. Ancient pagan religions, okay. But stone tools, outdated fashion. Vinyl records.
It seems broad at first, but his point is about the origin of the structure's significance. Anything, even a physical object or a trend, whose importance or form was shaped by collective thought energy fits his definition.
So the shared belief about the vinyl record or the fashion trend is what makes it a pendulum.
Essentially, yes. The collective agreement gives it power and meaning. When that agreement fades, the trend dies, the object loses its charge, so to speak. He even points to natural examples.
Natural ones.
Bacterial colonies, schools of fish, herds of animals, even forests or anthills. Any organized, similar group of living things acting in a coordinated way.
Wow. Okay.
It shows this fundamental tendency for similar energies or entities to group together and resonate, almost like they're guided.
So individuals are like the basic units.
The elementary pendulums, yeah.
And when they group up, these bigger pendulums form, like superstructures, with their own laws. That bureaucracy example is starkly, it just grows, regardless of who's in charge.
Exactly. It gets its own inertia. People inside it might even feel trapped by its rules, acting in ways that don't feel entirely like their own choice. They're just following the pendulum's frequency.
And Zealand is, well, he's not very complimentary about them, especially the destructive kind. He says they just consume energy from people, establish power, and don't care about the individual at all.
It's a pretty bleak assessment, yeah. He argues their sole purpose is just extracting energy.
Which sounds kind of sinister.
It can be. He stresses that being caught in one forces you to live by its rules, maybe pulling you way off a path that would actually make you happy and making it really tough to leave.
So if you're part of a system, you give energy, you get belonging, I guess.
You get an environment, a structure. But yeah, if you rebel, if your energy clashes too much,
The system pushes back or pushes you out.
or tries to destroy you in extreme cases, if your frequency doesn't match, you're a threat to its stability. And being stuck in an alien pendulum, one that's totally wrong for you, He calls it a soulless, sad existence.
A cog in a machine.
Right, you lose your freedom, essentially.
He uses Napoleon, Hitler, Stalin as examples of people caught up, maybe even used by these huge destructive pendulums, serving the pendulum's ends, not their own well-being ultimately.
It's a sobering thought that even immense power might just be instrumental to a larger, indifferent energetic structure. And these pendulums, they're always trying to lure people in, right?
Yeah, using advertising tricks, he calls them. Pulling people away from potentially happier paths, maybe into the wrong career, or a bad relationship.
Or joining a cause that looks noble on the surface.
Right. Even well-meaning groups, he suggests, can act as pendulums and divert you if their goals don't truly align with your happiness. The mask can hide hidden motives.
That's a really key point. It's about alignment with your specific lifelines, not just whether the pendulum seems good or bad externally. You have to look deeper.
Okay, so we've got a handle on what they are.
Mm-hmm.
Let's dig into the characteristics of these destructive ones.
Well, the first big one is that constant need for energy. They feed on their adherence energy, and that makes them stronger.
So they always want more followers
Sure.
to get more energy.
Always. Maximize followers, maximize energy intake. That drives a lot of their behavior, like aggressive recruitment or expansion.
They do that us versus them thing, don't they? Creating divisions.
Definitely. It's a classic tactic. Clearly define the in-group versus the out-group. It builds loyalty inside and creates an enemy outside.
Like political polarization?
Exactly like that. It rallies the base against the other, and they don't just stick to their own turf.
They go after dissenters, people who don't follow.
Yeah, Zealand says they act aggressively towards non-followers or competing pendulums. Try to neutralize them, convert them, or even eliminate them. It's about protecting their energy source.
And they hide this aggression behind
What?
lofty ideas.
Noble goals?
Often, yes.
What?
They use appealing masks, play on emotions like justice or patriotism or fear to manipulate people and justify their actions. You really have to question the surface narrative.
He mentions egregore. How does that fit in? Is it the same thing?
It's related. And egregore is also a kind of collective thought form entity. Zealand sees pendulums as a specific, maybe more dynamic type of egregore. He thinks the pendulum concept is broader, more directly involved in pulling our strings day to day.
Okay. So they need energy. How do they actually get it from us? The football stadium example was interesting. Yeah, that's a vivid one. All that intense crowd anger directed at one player. It's a huge weight of energy. Zealand suggests the football pendulum absorbs that energy.
So it doesn't hit the player directly.
It acts like a buffer, yeah. Otherwise, he theorizes, such focused mass emotion, positive or negative, could be overwhelming for an individual. The pendulum sort of processes it.
Fascinating. And this links to the competition between pendulums, that fight for energy.
Absolutely. He says that constant competition is a key sign of a destructive pendulum. Their main goal becomes attracting the most supporters, grabbing the most energy. The more aggressive that fight, the more destructive the pendulum likely is.
Which makes you look differently at, well, almost everything. Even charities, he suggests.
Even organizations doing good work still function as pendulums, feeding on adherent energy. And he warns they might still be fundamentally indifferent to individual well-being despite the compassionate image.
So you have to be really honest with yourself about why you're involved.
Crucial self-reflection, yeah. Is it genuine alignment and fulfillment? Or are you looking for something else, validation, belonging maybe at your own expense?
And destructive pendulums, they don't want us thinking for ourselves, do they?
No, independent choice is a threat. They benefit from controlled followers, people who think their fate is sealed, that they don't have much say, so they use manipulation to keep people in line.
Which is ironic when he asks if transurfing itself could be a pendulum.
Right. But he suggests it would be minimally destructive because its whole focus is on individual well-being, on your choice. But it does raise the question, could there be genuinely constructive pendulums?
Yeah, ones that empower people, maybe.
Perhaps. But that fundamental need for energy, it always carries a potential risk to individual freedom if you're not aware.
Okay, so this constant competition.
Yeah.
The battle of the pendulums, they try to destroy rivals to get more followers. That whole we're right, they're wrong thing.
That's the core impulse for the destructive ones, yes. Get involved in that battle, and you often end up chasing goals that aren't really yours, serving the pendulum's fight instead of your own life.
And war is the ultimate example of this.
The most extreme and tragic manifestation, yeah. He talks about how the justifications change from brute force to more civilized arguments about spreading progress or ideology, but the underlying dynamic is the same.
Stirring up conflict to gain power, like poking a beehive, as he says.
Exactly. Create an enemy, rally your followers, absorb the energy of the conflict. It's always fundamentally a battle for adherence.
And this isn't just physical war. It's in markets, politics, advertising.
Everywhere. Competition is pervasive. Established pendulums fight off newcomers that might siphon off their followers. Think of old industries resisting new technologies.
Like the internal combustion engine versus alternatives.
Classic example. They also build up their material strength, money, buildings, people, and put loyalists, favorites, in key positions. Not always the best people, but people who fit the pendulum structure.
And the followers often think they're acting freely.
That's the insidious part. The pendulum aligns their energy, gives them little hits of positive feeling for conforming, maybe.
Like in an election campaign, you feel good supporting your side.
And you feel like it's your choice. But Zealand argues the pendulum has subtly guided you, attuned your frequency, and if you start to question it, to pull away.
Your frequency drops out of sync.
Right. And the pendulum's grip can range from just feeling alienated to losing your job, or worse, depending on how powerful it is. It's like trying to hum your own tune when loud music is playing, the dominant frequency just takes over.
These puppet strings, how they coerce energy. Powerful ones use force, weaker ones use persuasion.
That's the gist. But what's really wild is that even if you hate a pendulum, you can still feed it.
By focusing on it, like the people constantly complaining about the government.
Exactly. That negative energy, if it resonates with the pendulum's theme, still fuels it. It doesn't always care why you're tuned in, just that you are.
And the media plays a huge role here, right?
Yeah.
Especially with negative news.
Oh, massively. Negative news evokes strong emotions, fear, anger, outrage. Perfect for grabbing attention and tuning thoughts to specific frequencies the pendulums feed on, keeping you off balance.
So reacting angrily to price hikes just strengthens the economic pendulum.
According to Zealand, yes. Fear is the strongest string, he says. But anxiety, worry, they work too. Guilt is another big one.
Instilled from childhood often leads to submission. Even a sense of duty can be a form of guilt.
Psychological complexes too. Inferiority, needing to be a warrior or always right. These are like personal keys the pendulums use to unlock your energy.
And the list goes on. Justice, pride, ambition, love, hate, greed, curiosity, even hunger. Anything that directs your thoughts.
Pretty much any strong feeling or need can become a hook. Think about automatic reactions, getting annoyed by bad news, anxious about warnings, angry at insults. These habits reinforce the pendulum.
And it's hard to break free because it feels familiar, even if it's uncomfortable.
Exactly, that comfort illusion, he calls it. The known, even if it's negative, feels safer than stepping out. These habits are predictable energy sources for the pendulum.
Okay, so the big question, how do we escape? He says fighting it directly is pointless.
Worse than pointless, it feeds the pendulum energy. The key, he insists, is refusal.
Just refusing to engage.
On an energetic level, yes, acknowledge it exists, but without judgment, anger, or losing your cool, like background noise you decide not to listen to. Opposition just amps it up.
Accept its existence, but don't embrace it. Just walk past. Indifferent.
Precisely. And crucially, don't focus on what you don't want. That just pulls it closer.
Yeah.
Like trying not to think about apples just makes you think about apples more.
Love and hate both create fixation.
Both attune your energy. So indifference is the weapon. Stop thinking about it. Ignore it, not actively avoid it. Just let it pass by, like changing the radio station.
And building walls, those iron boundaries. He says that doesn't work either.
Takes too much energy, he argues, and you're still vibrating against it, which is still a connection. True protection is emptiness. Nothing for it to hook onto.
Like ignoring a barking dog until it gives up.
Perfect analogy. If something gets under your skin, recognize the pendulum, stop reacting, cut off the energy supply, just thinking they're not worth it, can sometimes make irritants vanish from your life.
But what if you can't just ignore it? Like a demanding boss.
That's the gentle dodge. You kind of pretend to play along, but inside you stay detached, aware.
Like stepping aside from a sledgehammer instead of trying to stop it.
Or using the Aikido principle, accept the energy, move with it, redirect it. With the boss, maybe you agree superficially first to diffuse the tension.
Okay, I hear you.
And then gently guide it towards a better outcome. You're swinging with the pendulum consciously as an observer, not getting swept away.
Okay, but what about really unavoidable stuff? That Tramboli example, where an unexpected crazy reaction just dissolved the situation.
Yeah, doing something completely off script can shatter the pendulum's hold. It creates dissonance. The bully expects fear or submission, Getting something totally bizarre breaks the pattern.
Like the gang leader acting insane.
It disrupts the expected frequency, though, she warns against provoking genuinely dangerous people. Common sense applies.
Right. But for everyday stuff, humor, imagination, seeing commuters as penguins?
It shifts your internal state, which is key. Stop the automatic negative reaction. That habit is the anesthetic keeping you numb to the pendulum's influence. Building immunity takes practice, remembering not to react in the old way.
Because reacting negatively just escalates things, feeds the pendulum more.
Always. So the counter is either no reaction or a totally unexpected positive one. Fake enthusiasm, maybe.
Okay. Or actively choosing a positive emotion. Confidence instead of fear, joy instead of irritation.
These inappropriate emotional responses mess with the pendulum's rhythm and trying to figure out what the other person actually needs underneath the negativity.
Addressing the imbalance.
Yeah, like visualizing a stressed boss as relaxed and fulfilled. Or if someone's being difficult, maybe visualizing them getting what they need, peace of mind, health, whatever.
Instantly, when confronted, don't lock onto the problem.
Try to shift focus, visualize their need being met. It's like giving a little energy to restore balance, which can create goodwill. He suggests trying it even with, say, an uncooperative official you need a signature from.
And the payoff. If you manage to still the pendulum.
The energy it was draining becomes available to you. You get stronger, more resilient.
Okay, this leads to simple solutions to complex problems. Pendulums make things seem harder than they are.
They definitely obscure simple paths, yeah. They want you focused on the problem, feeling its complexity, its weight.
Because if you think it's complex, you stay stuck in its frequency.
Exactly. They play on your insecurities, make you feel worried or confused, so you accept the need for complicated answers. We get into the habit of anxious problem solving.
Which just keeps us hooked.
Right. And focusing intensely on the problem narrows your vision, blocks intuition, blocks the bigger picture where simple solutions might live. Genius, he implies, often comes from being free of these limiting pendulum frequencies.
So detach. Rinse yourself out of the problem. Observe it calmly.
Yes. Challenge the idea that it has to be complicated. Remember, simple solutions exist. Sometimes just changing your initial negative feeling about a problem can make it shrink or even disappear.
See, problems is just part of the flow, not things to occupy your whole inner space. Be empty towards them.
Because the solutions, he suggests, often already exist in the information field, accessible via your subconscious. So relax, let go of the anxiety, trust, quiet your mind.
Contemplate emptiness.
And allow the intuitive answers to surface, a step outside the pendulum's noise.
Okay, last big idea, the suspended state. What happens after you break free?
Well, you get freedom, which is great. Conflicts fade, anxiety drops. But you might also feel a bit directionless. Less external pressure maybe, but also fewer clear goals or desires.
Because so much of our world is built on pendulums, isolation feels like a desert.
Can do. So this suspended state, while better than being controlled, isn't the ultimate goal either. It's like kids who have everything but still whine because they need something to strive for.
So true freedom isn't escaping all pendulums.
It's freedom from other people's destructive ones. The goal is to become aware of your own conditioned goals that might not be serving you and consciously choose lifelines, choose pendulums maybe, that align with real happiness and success for you.
So some pendulums can be useful, if you're aware.
He suggests a self-aware person can consciously engage with certain pendulums, use their energy for their own chosen purpose. Complete freedom might be impossible, maybe even undesirable. Pendulums ultimately are part of how collective dreams become reality.
It's about conscious choice then, discernment.
Exactly, knowing which swings resonate with you.
Okay, wow. Let's try to wrap up the key takeaways. Pendulums. Energy structures from shared thought. Destructive ones drain energy, control us, fight each other. They hook us with emotions and reactions.
And escaping isn't about fighting, but about refusal, indifference, ignoring them energetically. Or using clever tactics like the gentle dodge, unexpected actions, shifting your internal state with humor, or positive visualization.
Detachment is key, especially for finding simple solutions that pendulums obscure. And the ultimate goal isn't total isolation, but freedom from unwanted influences and conscious alignment with forces that support your path.
So for you listening, start looking for these dynamics. Where do you feel pulled? Where do you react automatically? Identify the potential pendulums in your life.
And try these techniques out. See what happens when you just don't react, when you ignore the provocation, when you consciously choose indifference or even humor.
Understanding this stuff really can be empowering. It's a step towards taking back control, towards consciously shaping your reality instead of being shaped by unseen forces.
Right. So here's the final thought to leave you with. What about your personal pendulums? What ingrained beliefs, habits, maybe even long-held loyalties are acting like pendulums in your life, maybe pulling you slightly off course from what you truly want?
And how can you become more aware, more conscious in choosing which collective energies you engage with? Which ones genuinely help you move towards the lifelines of true happiness and success that feel authentically yours?
Something to reflect on. How to align with your unique path.